to Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths. What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock, trials. Being a hero is hard work. Our hero solves a riddle, slays a monster, escapes from a trap. 5 o'clock, approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock, crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock, treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, or power. 8 o'clock, result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock, return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock, new life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock, resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock, status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Hey, Mitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo?
Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Today in this episode, we're going to be talking about the big ordeal. Now, the big ordeal on this great hero's journey that we've been taking, we just reviewed all the steps that we're taking. But you got to remember, when we started in the ordinary world, when we were just kind of being ourselves, doing what we needed to do, and we had a vision about someday I want to, and you guys can enter anything in your head, whatever your hero's journey is. The big ordeal is the external representation of where you're going, what you want to do, what your dreams, what your aspirations are. In the last episode, when we talked about the inmost cave, that was an internal representation. The big ordeal is the external. What's the rest of the world see in us? And what is that goal, that dream, or that vision that we wanted to take? In The Wizard of Oz, it was when Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, were going up to the witch's castle to defeat them. That was the big thing. In Rocky, it was the fight. It was what everybody's going to be watching. So as we're going through the big ordeal, that is everything. It's an accumulation. It's the peak of your experience, but you're not finishing with that experience. And the big ordeal is exactly what you dreamed of. But you know what? Once we're actually on the journey and we've seen all the steps and the intricacies of what we have to go to, we're looking more at how are we changing? What does it take? You have to be a different person to enter the ring against Apollo Creed, or being a little girl from Kansas to conquer or go against the big witch. So I want you guys to stop for a second, because the whole idea about this whole thing that we're doing, this whole presentation, all these episodes, is so that you can become the hero in your story. And one of the things that you need to know is, what's the external representation? What are you trying to do? And each step of these is kind of defining that for you. So the big ordeal is, what's the world seeing you do? What are you conquering today to make yourself better, so that when you can look back and say, this one day I stormed the witch's castle, or I went against Apollo Creed. What's your version of this? And if you guys have been taking notes, if you've been looking in the journal or our journal or whatever you're doing, you should have a documentation of this. What's my big ordeal? What's it like? And you're going to remember this. And it's really good if you can kind of write it down and write your own narrative. And again, this whole thing is to make you your hero's journey. We only get one life. And, I often go over this, but, my favorite quote is, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, and they die with a song in their heart. And it's because they never took a shot. They never went for it. You should be documenting this and getting your big ordeal, your accumulation, top of your game. So today I want you to kind of keep in mind, that what am I doing? What am I fighting? What is the dragon that I need to slay? And in a nutshell, that's the big ordeal. So let's take this over from here. And Joe?
So, guys, I want to say thank you, Bill, for the explanation. In true fashion of what you've seen in the last episodes, I'm here to do what? I'm here to introduce, our two guest speakers that we have on the panel today. Now, what we've asked each one of them to do is to explain their hero's journey. And as you've seen in previous episodes, we don't sit quiet during that. So we will be popping in. Bill will be throwing in, stories that aren't really there. But we're going to go ahead and dig deep, and we're going to put this thing together for you. So what I want to do is to introduce the two people that we have on the screen. I'm going to give you a brief breakdown of Trez. Okay. Now, a brief breakdown is difficult because of everything she's done. So she's the evolutionary strategist, best-selling author, master success coach. You see what I mean? International speaker and thought leader. She's trained in the neuros, which we like, which is neuroscience and neuro-linguistic programming, psychology, emotional release, energy, business organizational development. She's your one-stop shop, right? She's been working with some of the most prominent business owners and executives, entrepreneurs, and organizations in the world for over 30 years. Yes, she started when she was 5 to help them
Definitely 5
levels of success. And then on top of that, we've got Rex Sikes that's sitting here. Now, with 40 years of experience, Steven Sikes innovatively transforms lives through mind design, which right there should tell you that we're all playing in neuro space right here. And he uses other methods as well, but mind design is what he is. He's the founder of Idea Seminars, right? And offers programs in whole brain and accelerated learning globally and online. So thank you both for taking time out of your day to come in and share your hero's journey. We're grateful that you guys are here. You can actually talk now. We're okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. Excited to have this conversation about the hero's journey.
Me too.
Well, I'm really interested in hearing your hero's journey, because as a single mother, entrepreneur, teacher, educator, speaker, what's your journey, Trez?
All right. Years ago, I was talking to a gentleman, and he had asked me a question. He said, "What's the worst thing that's ever happened to you?" And without skipping a beat, I said, "My father dying." And for me, looking back, I think that was the call to adventure. When you talk about living a comfortable life. The world was great. 2-parent household. Life was wonderful. Family was very important. Everything was easy. Everything was great. Everything was fabulous. I loved the support, the family unit. Everything was just as it was supposed to be. And then, 16 years old, my dad died of cancer. He was actually diagnosed, given 2 years to live, and died after 6 months.
Wow.
And so it was really a shock where the rug was just pulled out from underneath me. And I'll tell you, I shut down. I mean, I just became numb after that experience, and I stayed numb. I went through the motions, lived my life as best as I could, almost unconscious. Well, I was definitely unconscious for about 10 years. 10 years. So when you talk about refusing the call, there was just like, I didn't want to look at it. I never cried. I didn't cry at his funeral, didn't cry when he passed away. I was just very tough and just went through life. And my world came crumbling down again 10 years later. So it was a moment where I couldn't deny everything that was going on and being shaken up in my life, and that call to do something different. 10 years later, I was going through a divorce, and my mom had passed away, and she had kind of lived an unconscious life for those 10 years as well. It was really tough on her because she had depended so much on my dad. So just watching her deteriorate and almost feel a sense of relief for her, as sad as it sounds, because she no longer had to do this life alone. So me, I'm like, okay, left in a really, really dark place where I couldn't deny that there was something I had to do. Like I had to choose either stay numb and in essence go quietly to my death, which was kind of the path my mom took, or do something different. And I'll tell you, luckily for me, I had grown up with incredible parents who taught me how to dream, and that life was incredible and life was what you make of it. And so when my life had crumbled even more, I was homeless. I had a newborn baby, going through a divorce, no money, walked away from a business, walked away from my marriage. Had gained 100 pounds, unemployed. I walked away from business, so I didn't have any source of income. And I had actually moved far away from. I live in Orange County, and I'm live close to the beach, and that's just my happy place. And I moved kind of to the boondocks. Sorry, Bill, but I moved to Corona, which back then felt like I was escaping into a cave and hiding.
But you're not saying anything bad about the IE, right? That's not what you're saying.
Not at all.
No.
Not at
Okay.
all.
You moved to the extraordinary world, obviously.
I did,
Yeah.
and I was very.
I want to jump in, Trez, and interrupt.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I've known Trez for years, and I haven't got this much of Trez to understand it. But good call, Bill, because this is literally the hero's journey that she's going through all the way through. I'm glad she knows the structure, but wow. The only thing I related to on this was the gain 100 pounds. That's what I got. I was like, yeah, I've done that. Check that box off.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. Well, when you're shut down and you're not living your life, it's like an unlived life is not benign, right? It affects you physically. And that was my manifestation of it. So I was in Corona. I didn't have any friends around, no family. I was pretty isolated, didn't know any neighbors. My son did connect with one neighbor. So we had a neighbor kid and mom every once in a while talked to. So I was really isolated for about a year. I only lived there for 1 year because I still didn't have money. So I kind of got kicked out. But I was still in that dark place of, I don't know what to do. So I froze. So that year was really a time of freezing and going inward. versus before I was going through the motions, I was staying busy, I was hiding, I was, living life unconsciously. And at this point, when I was in Corona, there was more of like, I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything other than waking up, feeding my son, playing with him, going to bed. And after that year, I actually, lost the home, I had to sell it. I was homeless again. And, I was homeless again. And that was a point where I'm like, I've got to figure out something. I can't keep going on this path, this trajectory. I had this baby to take care of. He was really my impetus for searching for myself and for a better life. And I started to dive into learning, growing. I was listening to anything and everything I could get my hands on. I started to meditate, pray, go to workshops. I studied with, every mentor that I could find. We talk about meet the mentors, and every material that I can find. I still have audio tapes from the greats, from Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer. I still have those that really saved me because it gave me an avenue which created that path for me to get out and start to figure out, how do I live my life? How do I reconnect with my dreams? And my dreams changed because back then I was on a trajectory that was all planned out for me. I was going to go to medical school. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to, get married, have, 2.1 kids, buy a house. It was just like all laid out for me in this perfect life that I had been raised in. And now I had to look at, okay, well, what is it that I truly love? What is it that I truly desire for myself? And how do I get there? How do I reach the best, highest version of myself? And so going to connect with all of those mentors and teachers, and I got coached and read every book that I could get my hands on, really gave me a path out, of that dark cave and that dark place, and gave me a place where, I dropped the 100 pounds. I was able to invest in real estate. My finances just shot through the roof. I've been able to create incredible relationships in my life. I have an incredible network. I've traveled the world. I mean, all kinds, like everything that I can even imagine dreaming of, I just dream it. And I've got this path to manifesting it. And so I really learned a lot about how to live my life. And, when you talk about, okay, you return in the hero's journey, you return with the elixir. To me, it's the passion that I have to teach everyone else how to live their best life. And that's the biggest prize for me. Now, I still go through hero's journeys often. And I think the difference now is that every time that call to adventure comes, number one, I say yes. And I just go straight in. And I don't sit in that dark place very often. Bill and I are really good friends, and I've called him, bawling every once in a while, and because something happened that's really thrown me off my course or ungrounded me. But within a day, I'm back on track, and so instead of 10 years initially, my next hero's journey maybe took, 3 years, and then a year, and then a month. And now it's I'm always saying yes. And to me, that's when the ordeal to me isn't as big of an ordeal anymore. It's more of, all right, let's go, because I know there's something incredible on the other side. And one of the things my best friend, because I've called, my best friend boohooing as well. I do go there. Sorry, I don't know if you guys boohoo, but she reminded me one time, it's about a year or two ago, and she's like, you know what, Trez, you've gone through hell and back. I have no doubt that you can get through this with grace. And I think that's the biggest prize as well, is knowing that
Grace?
Nothing that can bring you down. Who's Grace?
I want to backtrack. I want to put a pin in something. I want you to backtrack for a second, and I gotta know, and I want you to share. So you were down. You definitely had this great story. What was the moment, like when Tony talks about the moment when you just said, "Enough, thou shalt not pass," and you switched. You remember that?
Yes, it was actually the same day because my son's friend mother had been under social services, so she was getting paychecks. And I remember, cooking dinner, and I'd be over at her house and watching her eat steaks, and I didn't even have bread at home. And so she, and I told her, I'm like, I don't have food. And she's like, well, get apply for welfare and for food stamps and all that stuff. And I said, oh, I'm a college graduate. I lived this life. I was going to be a doctor. I ran a business. There's just no way. And it got to the point where I thought, it's for my son. And so, first of all, I had to get in my car and get gas. I didn't have gas. So I went through my son's toys. And you're going to make me cry, Bill. And I found 3 quarters. And I took that to the gas station and I handed the lady 3 quarters. And she kind of looks at it. She looks at me. And I said, 75 cents on number 2 or whatever the number was. And so I put 75 cents worth of gas in my car. And then I went to the social services office and I'm filling out the paperwork for food stamps. And I'm looking around and at all these people, and I thought, this isn't me. What am I? How did I get here? What am I doing here? This is not me. I'm smart. I'm capable. I've got to do something different. And I gave back the form. I didn't fill it out, and I just went home. And that was close to kind of the end of my year. In that home where I just decided, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to build the life that I know I deserve and my son deserves. So I would say that shifted things for me, where it wasn't a waiting game anymore. It was I've got to make this happen.
Awesome. You can drop the mic now.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Wipe your eyes and drop the mic. That's the epitome of the hero's journey. And then I'm so glad that you shared that, is because the whole reason we're doing this is not to stand from the stage and say you got to and you can and here's the 4 steps to do this, is watching real people go through shit that we all go through and just say, screw that, I'm bigger, I'm better, and stand up and watch the courage in the transformation, not just for a moment, because like you said, we're continuing going through journeys, because as long as we're growing, there's another piece of the pie or the plan, and we just get better and stronger, because now you go like, oh, I've been on this journey before. Let me put on my big girl panties and kick its ass, and the fights get easier. So,
and that's the thing for me, it was the decision, and I had no clue how I was going to make it happen, but it was the decision that opened the door for me, because I had no idea how things were going to change.
Well, the universe opens up to someone with a made-up mind.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Awesome.
Thank
My
you.
girl.
Great
You
job.
made a girl cry again, Bill.
Well, I do what I do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trez. I'm interested to see if Bill's going to make Rex cry next. That's what we're going to look at.
I'm going to do what I can.
Fantastic. Rex, let's switch you with Trez over here. Thank you so much, Rex, for dedicating your time coming in here to share with us today. So can we get he's rewriting his whole hero's journey because Trez just dropped the mic, right? In the beginning, Rex was like, she's going to go first. Okay, good. Now he's like, oh man, why do I got to follow Trez? But what I think one of the beautiful parts is that we put out to say, and what she had said is, I keep going through this. Right. And so when you stop and see the framework of the hero's journey, you realize we all continuously are going through these things all the time. The hope is that listening to Trez, listening to Rex, and everyone else that's come up to this point is for you to understand you're not alone, and that this is part of life that goes through. So I want to throw it over to you, Rex, and say, share with us one of the hero's journeys that you have gone through and come out. And thank you.
Wow. Well, I concur. First off, nothing is sequential and nothing is in separation at all, kind of is at one time, like the infinity symbol or like a matrix or a field. Things happen simultaneously, not just sequentially. And so I have never stopped going through the journey, and there are multiple journeys going on all at the same time. I'll try to explain some of these. I was born with a microphone and a magic wand in my hand. That's just, I came into this world to speak and to do mystical things. And at 3, my parents put me in acting classes, dance lessons and acrobatics. And at 4, I took acting, and I decided I want to be an actor. And at 6, I wanted to be a mystic because I had been raised Catholic, and I thought the priest had this mystical connection with God. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I asked my mom to read me whatever kind of mystical books we had around the house. And so she read Think and Grow Rich and, Magic of Believing and the Bhagavad Gita and Khalil Gibran and all these different books. And about 11, I started reading these all on my own. But by the age of 8, I had been introduced to my dentist, who was a hypnotist and an entertainer. And so I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I learned hypnosis from the medical approach, as well as from a stage magician later at the age of 11. And I started teaching it as a teenager, and I started performing around the country and around the world as a child entertainer. And I decided, I want to do this. My life has been one of constant refusal. I won't do that. I won't do this. I won't do that. The calling to be a mystic continued to grow and to continue to call and continue to say, help people transform. And I go, nope, I just want to help people be entertained. I just want to help them, enjoy and be intrigued. But I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to be the person in the front of the room kind of thing. I'll teach and I'll help, but I don't want that limelight. And by the time I was 18, I met a mystic, a real mystic in Los Angeles, who terrified me. And he kept saying, Rex, you have so much to give. You've got so much to give. Give me something, And I was like, he's after my body. He's after something. He's after my cash. I would get terrified and I would run away. And then I'd crawl back later and I'd run away only again, because he was so open and so loving. And he would say, the world is so beautiful and you're missing all of this. So it terrified me. So again, I refused. I ran away. And when I ran away, I dove into acting and dove into a relationship and really tried to shut the door on this call to do something, to speak and to help people and to actually use the microphone I was born with, use the magic wand. And I ended up in a crisis that I write about in my book. And it's only a portion of the book, but where I lost everything, lost my relationships, my friends, my family. I lost all of my money. I lost my career. I was devastated. I tried to kill myself. I had been, put on prescription medicines that should have killed me. I got a fatal combination of medicines that was considered a walking miracle. I didn't die of a coma. And when I came out of it, I was so full of shame and regret and remorse and self-loathing and hatred that I then started to abuse more alcohol and drugs. And I went through this for a number of months and years, actually more than a year. And then I finally went, I am a huge crap magnet. I have created this mess and all these horrible things have happened to me. And I can't do this anymore. I either die or I figure out a way to change. And I locked myself in my apartment for well over 6 weeks. And I got in a chair and I visualized. I had been a meditator too, but prior to this, I had been a child evangelist. I had accepted Jesus when I was 14 kind of thing. And I traveled with tent show healing people. I mean, we do all these different things, but I would always run away from them. So here I am in my room trying all these things that I knew could work. And about halfway through the 3 weeks or so into the 6 weeks, I realized, all I was doing was whining, complaining, blaming, and making excuses and going, why did this happen? How come they don't listen? And what's going on? And how long is this going to take? And I realized I don't want to know any of that. None of that matters. What I want to know is how soon, how quick, how easily can I get out, reclaim my life, and live the life that I'm meant to live. When that happened, and I started to change what I was asking myself and how I was asking myself, things began to loosen up. And after 6-8 weeks, I emerged kind of like a butterfly, or as a toddler coming out, very fragile, essentially, but with enough, power and confidence to make my way in the world. And we had started a church in Hollywood, and we had started a theater in Hollywood, and I left all of that. I ran away from them. It's another long story. I had guns put to my head, and I had been held hostage and stuff. So I renounced the church essentially, and I went into Eastern mysticism and Alan Watts and Buddhism and Hinduism and all sorts of other philosophies. And I ended up meditating in the desert for a long time. For 4 or 5 years, I would go to the desert and I would spend time. It was March of 1982 when I was with some people, and I had been meditating, and I was filled with such gratitude. And I was getting ready to leave the desert, and I felt like I'd been hit by lightning, and I dropped to the ground, and I laughed. And my friends picked me up, and they were trying to walk me eventually to the car, and I couldn't stop laughing. And then we drove all the way back to Los Angeles. I laughed the entire 17-hour drive. I mean, they thought I had gone completely insane. I laughed for 2 days. I couldn't stop laughing. I didn't sleep. I laughed. I felt incredible. And when I came out of it, the world and I were completely different. And I was like, everything was peaceful. Everything was blissful. Everything was wonderful. Everything was incredible. And people look at me and go, oh my God, Rex, what has happened to you? And I go, who cares? It just is. And then it started again. This calling, this was, come back out. Now it's talk it. I ended up in the 80s teaching all over the world, traveling, teaching NLP and hypnosis, and my programs, Mind Design. A lot of my programs are the predecessors to a lot of the people today. I had in the 90s, a retreat center, people flying from all around the world. And at that point where everything was working, I went, I don't want this. I don't want to be the guru in front of everybody. I don't want to be, but I don't want to be Tony Robbins. I want to be somebody who connects with people, but I don't want to be this. And so I shut it all down again. And I went back secret, and I closed everything down, only to come back out again. In other words, it's been this constant call, and this constant refusal, and this constant call. The only difference was that from 1982 on, and from that experience in my own apartment, I was sharing what my experiences were. I've gone through every hardship multiple times. I've lost my money. I've lost romance. I've lost friends. I've lost family. Like we all have. If you've gone through it, I may have gone through it similarly, or you've gone through what I've gone. There's no difference between us. The difference that I discovered in going through this is when you consider something a problem, it's a problem. And if you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. And to celebrate it all. The refusal is to be celebrated. The ordeal is to be celebrated. The resurrection is to be celebrated. All of it is an incredible celebration. We categorize these different steps, and they work well in a movie, in a book, but we categorize it in our life, and we try and understand it and grasp it, but it's all working together for good. It's all, our journey unfolds daily. And so tomorrow I could have a tragedy, or I could have something of great beauty happen. It will be whatever it is. The human mind tends to judge it, and tends to categorize it, and tends to try and pigeonhole it. But what it is truly an opportunity. It's truly an infinite opportunity. There's infinite possibilities and infinite resourcefulness that's open to all of us. And I would not have any of this had it not been for tragedies, and for the refusals, and for the obstinance, and for the stupidity, and for all of the things that I did to fight what it is. And so if you feel that calling, my feeling is, when you feel the calling, answer the call. And if you don't, that's part of the process. And if you do, that's part of the process. You can't error. You can't be off track. We could think we are, but you can't be off track, because I've spent my entire life off track, and it's all been good. It's all been good. And so today I'm doing, the same kind of thing. I mean, I teach, I share, I present. I've got online and offline programs. I get to travel the world. I get to do things online. And there are times when I say no, but what I've learned more than ever is how to say yes and how to just celebrate all of it.
Hey, Rex, are you familiar with the Jonah principle? Have you heard of the Jonah principle?
Well, let's talk about it. What would you like to know? Or how would we like to discuss it?
Well, no, I'm just recognizing that story because the thing that resonates with me is that, you said, my life's been refusal to call. The Jonah principle is Jonah and the whale.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah was told by God to go over here and tell these guys to quit doing bad things. And they were kind of like, I don't want to do that. So he runs away and he goes on into the ocean. And that's when he's swallowed by the whale. And in some versions of the hero's journey, they call that being in the belly of the whale, because the more you refuse the call, the more pain you get, because, God, the universe, the quantum, whatever it is, has put that calling in you and said, this is your reason for being born, because you need to go express this. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking about going through that's the first thing that popped in my head was the Jonah principle. Just wondering if you had ever heard that.
Well, I mean, I'm familiar because of the Bible. I mean, it's something that, growing up, and especially during my teenage years, what I have done in my life has been to take something, get really, really close to it. I can get to anybody in the world. I mean, I've really been good at getting to the top people, studying with the top people, being with the top people, and sharing with the top people. But I would like, as a young Christian, I started to get fame and success as a young Christian. I went, I don't want this. This is not what I want. And I ran away from it. As an actor, I started to get success. I go, this is not what I want. I would run away from it. As a meditator, I'd go, and I would run away from it. In other words, I would refuse that call, but the call never stops. But here, going with the Jonah principle, when you think about it, and we'll use the Bible, but I use all sorts of texts now, is Noah was told to build an ark when there was no evidence of rain, and everybody thought he was insane and crazy, and his family, everybody thought, well, this is stupid. Whether the story's true or not is another thing, Jonah. But the point is that he had to do something on faith. And if he refused, it wouldn't get done. And God would do something with Jonah. He'd go to the belly of the whale. Well, yes. I mean, I've been in the belly of the whale so many times that you could call the belly of the whale my home. I mean, that's where I kind of live. And at the same time, I mean, they're all analogies. It's death and resurrection, going into the whale and coming out of the whale. It's going in, the thing that I've discovered in this is that all hardship is not hardship unless we call it hardship. And there are devastating things that happen, but in other words, when you transform, the world transforms. It doesn't mean that what we would call hardship ends. It means how you react or respond, or your relationship to it changes. So the guy coming out of the whale's belly is different than the guy going into the whale's belly. And it had not been for the whale's belly, he wouldn't come out a different person. Like Jesus goes into the grave and resurrects, or any number of different stories where people go through tragedy or trials. It's all good. It's all good. And yet most of us don't believe that, because we don't experience that, because we've been conditioned to think there are good things and bad things, and we should get rid of the bad things and only focus on the good things. But if you've only tried to focus...
Yeah, that's absolutely genius on that, because, on a meme, we can read that, go through this. But when you get stories like yours and Trez's and millions of other people that said, yeah, this is true. It may be uncomfortable. We seek comfort so much that we think that we're supposed to be comfortable all the time, but you don't grow that way. You don't progress. You can't get from here to there without effort of walking.
All innovation. No, you're absolutely correct. All innovation comes from discontent. It comes from it was too hot, so we created refrigeration or air conditioning. It was too cold, so we created heat or warm clothing. Discomfort is what moves us. It is what causes us to evolve. Napoleon Hill studied 520 people. Almost all of them went through severe loss before they ever made it. That is the way of the world. That is the journey, is to have the loss. But when we try and it's okay to escape it to move forward, but the more you resist it, the more it comes about. The more you try to focus only on the one side and celebrate the good, the more batteries have a negative and positive pole. That's how energy works.
Yep, exactly. That's
so. If I
awesome,
can jump in real quick, I just want to ask for both parties that are on here. When I listened to this and what have you, the answer was pretty evident that we all refuse the call. Okay, so my question to Rex and then to Trez is, what do you guys believe is the underlying reason that we are refusing the call? Because like you said, we're doing it all the time. And so something comes up and we go, yeah. And again, we're all pretty bright people. Okay. Right. Sorry, Frank. But if you look at it, we're all pretty bright, but yet we can all recognize, hey, this is the calling. And yet we still go, nah, that's not for me right now. But what is it that's making us stop on the call? So, Rex?
Because in our authentic beings, we're smart enough to know that we need to go through a process like a diamond goes through pressure in order to be a diamond, become a diamond, that charcoal becomes pressed under pressure, that we go through these experiences to become who we truly are. And without them, we're just lazy. We're in our comfort zones. We go nowhere. So the calling is there to wake us up. And the hardship is there to provide the lessons and the experience and the abilities and the resources so that we can discover who we truly are and what's truly available to us. And that none of that should stop us ever, but be food for moving forward.
I would say, and I absolutely agree with that, Rex. And I think for me, what I see, the refusal of the call is part of the grieving of the life you think you are supposed to have. It's the life that I know, and it shouldn't be this way. And so it's that denial of, I don't want this to happen. And it could be anything. I mean, if there's a death, it's like I get stuck, or I got stuck because he wasn't supposed to die. And my life is still supposed to stay on track. So I think we spend too much time getting stuck because we're staring at that closed door and we're wishing it would be open. And it takes us a while. For me, it took me a while of complete discomfort and pain and a realization of that I've got to let go of that life that I've known. I've got to let go of that life that I thought I was supposed to live and open up to the possibility of something different. And I think also the refusal of the call is because you don't believe that there is a better life on the others. If you turn your head and go through a different door, there's a fear of, I know this life, I don't know what's on that side. And I'm not willing to risk my life, my livelihood, my comfort, my sanity to attempt something that may lead me right back to where I was right now, to the same pain, the same grief. So it's a risk, and it takes a lot of trust and faith in yourself and in something greater than yourself.
That's beautiful. Can I
well,
add?
that's awesome.
May I add? May I
That
just add?
is the way both of you guys today. I really appreciate you. The stories are amazing, and the whole thing that we wanted to do this was so that real stories connect with real people, so that people out there aren't going to be living a life of quiet desperation. But when they're going through crap and they're having to go to the heaven of Corona or going out into the desert and meditating and laughing for 24 or for 17 hours, that they're going to go, this is not a bad thing. This is a growth thing. And they'll actually recognize it because of your stories. So you guys are awesome. I appreciate it.
Can I add something? Because Trez says something really beautiful, and I'd like to add on to it, as you just did. And that is, it's to me, and what the answer is it's about clinging. It's clinging to what's known. It's clinging to, who you are and your possessions. And it's learning the art of detachment. And the problem with detachment is the way it's been posited by so many religions and people, the way we think is, if you live an unattached life, it means you can't have any of it. But if you truly live an unattached life, you can have all of it, because it's not it that makes you happy. It's you who are intrinsically happy or blessed or blissful. And therefore, you can have everything else in addition to who you are. It's the people who are struggling to get the car and the boat and the plane and the relationship and everything else, thinking it will fulfill them, that are missing. Because then when they get all this stuff, they go, well, I thought this would make me happy, but it doesn't. So it's that clinging. But if you truly live an unattached life, then you can have everything in life. That's why life is abundant.
That's amazing. Thank you, Rex. I want to wrap this up, but one of the things that I wanted to add to my 2 cents in there is the message clearly came across that there is no timing. You can do this at any point in time in your life. So some of us that are like, hey, I'm a little bit older at this point. I don't think that it's a good time to take an adventure. That in every story that you guys have expressed in there, one, you're going to hit the ordeal every single time. It's going to come back. There's going to be another one, but that at any point in time, you can change your life completely. And it's just about making that decision. So I think, Trez, you talked about making that decision one day, having that identity and saying that this is who I am or this is who I am not. And then answering that call to adventure. So I appreciate you guys so much in there. Amazing. It was fantastic to get a little bit more from each of you on there, not just your stories, but the whys behind everything is huge. I want to encourage everybody to go to heroesjourneylive.com to get the contact information for Rex and for Trez. You can contact them directly and learn about their bios and how to contact them going forward in there. For those of you that are joining us, there's also links in there for our after party. So you can jump on there. We'll have a little more discussion as we go across with each step that we go through, but especially today's step of the ordeal and the transformation. So thank you guys again so much. Amazing. I really appreciate the energy and what you guys brought and the ability to bring that back to every single one of us as we go forward.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys all for showing up. And I want you to be prepared for the next episode when we're going to be talking about death. So in both of these stories and all the stories that we run across in the hero's journey, or just anytime you're going through adversity, you have to leave something behind in order to grow. And we're going to go into detail. We'll delve deep into that with some new guests and share along. And remember, we want to hear your stories after. So don't forget to join us for that after party. Trez, love you. Thanks. Rex, love you. Frank and Joe, well, Bye-bye.